I want to talk to you all today about writing grants to fund criminal legal system research. And I think the thing to acknowledge first is that we have a problem of mass incarceration in this country. We are the world's largest incarcerator. There's been a 700% increase in the incarceration of women over the last 40 years. That's a population that I personally work with. 13 million people pass through jails and prisons every year in this country, and another 7 million people are under some sort of criminal legal system supervision on any given day. Given this problem of incarceration in this country, it's also important to acknowledge who we incarcerate. We incarcerate people who are overwhelmingly poor, undereducated, underemployed, people who lack health insurance, and most importantly, we incarcerate people of color at disproportionate rates in this country. And we also tend to incarcerate people who are ill, people who have complex substance abuse and mental health problems, people who have homeless histories, trauma histories, people who have long histories of chronic infectious disease. And so this is sort of a missed opportunity. The National Institutes of Health, the largest federal funder of health research in this country, spends less than 0.1% of their research portfolio on criminal legal system research. That said, when you talk to individual program officers, the NIH is very interested in funding this research. And I want to be able to tell you how to get that funding. I have 6 strategies that I'd like to share with you when it comes to getting NIH funding for criminal legal system research. So the first and most important strategy for getting this research is really articulating the problem. So as I've laid out to you, the system of mass incarceration creates natural disparities, both in terms of who we incarcerate, but also the health disparities that result from not only the incarceration experience, but the selection of people who we put in our jails and prisons. And really articulating that problem tells a story to your funders and to grant reviewers about sort of the importance of this population, the extent to which they're overlooked, and the need for research that is really serving this population. So the second important strategy for getting this research funded is to be able to tell reviewers what research has already been done. So we call this in scientific review the rigor of prior research. And so this is what is known, what remains to be known, and what you're going to do about the problem. And so this is simply a literature review, laying out what's in the field, and then secondly, laying out what your own body of research has shown. So preliminary studies are really important in NIH grants, and that is just speaking to your own research experience. What have you found? What has that made you curious about? What path do you want to go down next? The third important strategy for writing NIH grants is to address gaps in the research. So as I said, you review the rigor of prior research, but then it's important to say that, but we still don't know the answer to this question. We still don't know the path forward. And being able to say that this research is going to address an important gap in the field is critical to getting this funding, because it shows not only that you know sort of what's been done and what the gaps are, but you have a strategy that other people can use to advance the field. So the fourth strategy for writing a winning NIH-funded proposal to do this research is simplicity in study design. And that means that you have clear, logical, steady aims, that you have articulated a research design, and that you have described your methods in such a way as to be reproducible. A good method section should be like a roadmap for other researchers to come along and do exactly what you've done. So the fifth strategy for success is getting feedback. So when I sit down to write an NIH aims page, I write about 10 drafts. And the people who give feedback on those drafts are the program officers at NIH, if I can find them. They know everything. They know the makeup of the portfolios. They know the direction that the science needs to go in. I always listen to them. The second type of person is a colleague or a collaborator or your group of collaborators. And the third type of person might be an external reviewer. I usually wait until I have a full grant draft written before I send it out for external review. And the type of person I'm looking for to do this is an expert in the field, but also perhaps someone who has had prior scientific review experience. And I pay these people. You can use your department funds. You can use a budget from your own research to pay someone for external review. So the sixth and final strategy in terms of success for this research is knowing your funding agency. So I'm really focused in this conversation around National Institutes of Health funded research. And I have done everything I can to learn about that funding agency, from looking at their scientific review process, which is posted on NIH websites, to talking to colleagues about how to write these grants, to getting examples of these grants and mimicking those examples. And whenever possible, getting program officials to read aims pages, read short grant applications, and really just sort of learning the trade as if I were an apprentice. So if I were talking to early stage investigators, I would tell them a few things. Number one, you have to be brave. I've met a lot of investigators who don't think they're ready. If you have preliminary data and about 10 publications in this area of research, it's time to go for it. Write an NIH grant, see how you do. I also like to use a method of noodles against the wall. You throw spaghetti against the wall to see if it's cooked, right? You got to try, and you got to keep trying again until you sort of hit something. The third tip I would give is you become a better grant writer when you read grants. So the NIH has a great early scientific review program where they'll take early stage investigators as grant reviewers. And if you can get into that program or find yourself serving as an ad hoc member of a study section, you'll really learn how people put together these grant proposals. And that's just critical. The other tip I like to give to early stage investigators is to find a good senior mentor. A lot of collaborators will be happy to sign on to your proposal, but then never actually read anything or give critical feedback. So you need at least one person on your team who's going to give you really critical feedback. So the call to action today is to invite early stage investigators and established investigators to come with us and do this work. It's important. There's a need for it. There is interest from the NIH to fund this work. Please let CJ Tracks be a resource to you, and the best of luck to you in this endeavor.